name is Dr. Rick Saguil.
And action. Hey, Jay, this is Kirk again. And action. Hey everyone, it's Dr. Rick, and hope you're doing well. Thank you everybody, all my well-wishers that saw my post on Instagram and Facebook. So I turned positive. I had taken a PCR nasal swab, and COVID-19 RNA was found in or detected. So doing fine. That was about 2 weeks ago now. And I had symptoms for like 4 days. And I think I have resolved it. Nobody really knows the true biology of this disease process, but the track record shows that once you stop the symptoms, you're probably going to stop shedding the virus. So hopefully the lifestyle that I tell you guys to live all the time with regards to eating right, mostly plant-based, exercise, getting good sleep, having happiness, getting out to nature, hopefully all those things helped me get through and it'll help you get through. So it's never too late. In fact, the reason I am making this video is because one of my patients who is dealing with psoriatic arthritis and psoriasis, it's an autoimmune disease, pretty severe too. He's currently under control with biologicals, so medicines that are used to turn off the immune response. So just in a nutshell, the idea is when you attack your own joints and your own skin by mistake, if you turn the immune system off, then he won't attack anymore. And your joint pain will go away and your rash will go away. You've probably seen those commercials for psoriasis on TV. You know, somebody's embarrassed because they have a rash, and then they talk about the drug, and they take the drug, and then suddenly they're smiling and they're playing sports with no rash and like a tank top. So it's really good for those cases. However, your immune system is turned off, and that's not good during times of a viral pandemic. So my guy is fine. He's tucked away, he's social isolating and masking and staying out of contact. And everybody in the household is also taking precautions. And by the way, it's going to be Thanksgiving next week. And I saw, this is my N95, one of them. I have to replace them because the elastic gets a little bit loose, and you have to have a tight seal. Anyway, O'Hare, I just saw some broadcasts from O'Hare Airport, and there are masks, but everybody's like in line at the TSA and or check-in, and it's a holy mackerel. If people are traveling now and they're going to different spots and they happen to be sitting behind somebody who coughs, even if they have a mask, that person, when they get to destination, if they're staying for a week, perfect incubation time. So we're at least using masks, but the distance is not there, and the suggestion by the Fed is no travel. Certainly some people have to travel because they don't have any other place to stay, but I'd say postpone the holidays until 2021, because if you look at the ascent of the cases that are positive, and that is probably cases that are also symptomatic, not just positive because everybody's doing swabs, but positive because you're sick. They're logarithmically increasing, and I really think it's because of Halloween and rallies. So that was 2 weeks ago. So if it's blossoming now, you'll have the alpha people that were involved closely, and they're starting to become sick, but they'll also infect beta people, the second round. So when the people get sick from 2 weeks ago, they shed virus, and the people around them takes about a week, but within the next week to 2 weeks, you'll have a second bloom, and I don't think it's going to go down. It'd be nice to flatten it, but I really believe Fauci is correct. If you just socially isolate, distance yourself, wash hands, wear masks all the time, you can flatten it. We did it before, and unfortunately, Pritzker in Illinois is having to go to phase 3 again, where everything's getting shut down. So I already talked about my piece where I think that exercise is important for boosting up the immune system. And I don't necessarily agree with closing down gymnasiums and places to exercise because it really boosts your immune system. But there's some problems with that. That's just my personal belief. This is a great book, by the way. Talks about turning on your immune system, talks about turning off or closing down the superhighway for infection or disease. They're really cool. So pick it up. A patient of mine suggested it to me. And what I wanted to do today was just give my guy relief that there is a vaccine coming. I mean, if you look at the typical speed of a vaccine, that it goes from clinical trials to phase 3, phase 4, it takes 15 years and like $1 billion, $1 billion to get one approval. Now, since last winter, less than 12 months, they've gone from clinical to phase 3 and going to be, I think Pfizer is going to release or apply for emergency of EUA. And I think they're going to get it. So if that happens, they have to start mass producing the vaccines. And I believe that Moderna and Pfizer are doing a 2-stage shot. So you get in there and then you wait a while. I'm not sure the distance or the time that you have to wait. Then you get your second shot. Theoretically, that confers immunity. So they're not going to be able to immunize everybody. I don't see. The logistics are really tough because if Pfizer gets theirs, you have to store it at 60 below. And to go from, you can keep that those parameters in Pfizer, but when Pfizer has to ship out on dry ice and then get it to the pharmacies, you have to release the vaccine, or they give the vaccine within 24 hours, I believe. Otherwise, you have the mRNA, which is the messenger RNA, will essentially unravel. So we don't have to get into too deep of the weeds with that, but it's important to understand that the vaccine is coming. And there's several different types of vaccines. This is pretty good. This was from the Johns Hopkins website, and it gives you a pretty cheap primer on what different types of vaccines are. There's attenuated, there's toxoid, there's conjugate, there's dead virus. So there's a whole bunch of different viruses that have been released over the millennia to take care of everything from chickenpox to shingles to measles to human papillomavirus. So yellow fever. They're all useful. Smallpox is the best example. When you eradicate a disease process, that's pretty good. That means with a very small amount of side effects, that means if the disease is out of humanity, then success to scientists. Now, here's the caution. Well, first of all, let's talk about how to figure out if a vaccine is going to be useful or not. What they're basing it on, what you're supposed to do is go from clinical studies to phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then release to the population. And during that ramp up, they expose more and more people to look for side effects. And if they find that there's no side effects, cool. And then if they find that there's efficacy or usefulness, then that's even better. And if they can make it cheap. So Pfizer, a couple of different places, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, they all sped up the research speed. I mean, again, it takes about 10 to 15 years for like a drug and a vaccine to get approved or to get to phase 3. And then it costs like $1 billion. So the cool thing here is because there was an emergency authorization that there is a step in by the government to take some of the financial burden off of the companies. So the government will essentially step in and say, we'll just mass produce, and if it works, great. If it doesn't work, we'll just throw away and then restart. So it does take a lot of the financial burden off of the drug companies. So that's kind of cool. But again, I have to see the data because it's not out yet on the side effects. But I think Moderna and Pfizer have started since July to give it to humans and haven't had any big outbreaks of side effects, which is good, but you're not sending it out to millions of people just yet, so we'll have to see. Typically, if you have 2 months that you don't have major side effects and there's benefit to it, it can be used as an emergency authorization. So that's positive. And the efficacy is supposedly 94.5 to 95%, which is really good for a vaccine. So that's the information from Moderna and NIH. Moderna is partnering up with NIH to come up with their vaccine. Both the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines are about the same. Then again, there's other companies that are making different forms of vaccines. But with regards to my guy, if he's on something that modulates or turns down his immune response so that he doesn't have arthritis or rash, we can't give him vaccine until he's off the medicines, because the vaccine is supposed to stimulate, without giving you the infection, it's supposed to stimulate the production of antibodies to the little messenger RNA piece. You don't get the actual virus, but you get a piece of the message sent into your cells, and the cells start to produce a reaction of antibodies that will attack the spike protein. That's the crown on the coronavirus. That's the surface, and that's the way the coronavirus adheres to and attacks the cell. Those little spikes, they bind with the receptor on your cells, and then once they bind, they inject the active messenger RNA that goes in and takes over your factory and produces virus. Now, the way that the two vaccine companies are producing theirs is they're just giving the spike protein message to the cell so that you can develop an antibody that just recognizes the spike protein, not the whole virus, the spike protein. And then if you have antibodies to that, hopefully for some type of immunity or some length of immunity, anytime you come into contact with a COVID virus or somebody coughs in your direction, like the guy that sold me my fire pit, your antibodies will turn on and attack the virus and neutralize the virus so it can't bind. And when you melt the spike proteins on the surface of the virus, it can't bind with any of your cells. So it's essentially a dead virus. So that's the beauty of the vaccines that are coming out soon. But again, it's got to be how many? If you can release 50 million vaccines and get them distributed, I don't know how they're going to do that, but again, it has to be cold temperature. Moderna, they only have to be minus 20 degrees, and Pfizer, they have to be minus 60. But that logistically, that must be hard. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but and if it's 2 shots, that means 50 million vaccines will only treat theoretically 25 million people. So they're rolling it out, and that's cool. But in the case of my guy, we'll have to stop medicines. He'll have to suffer the flare-up of psoriatic arthritis and rash. And I'll have to work with this immune person, because depending on how long it takes for the white blood cells to kick in again and start hunting or being active, then you give the vaccine, and hopefully producing antibodies to that little tiny vaccine, the parts of the messenger RNA. And then when the antibodies start to circulate, then you can put back that patient on his biologics so that he can fight his psoriatic arthritis and have an antibody. So I think that's the way it has to go, but I'll have to talk to his immunologist. So hopefully this vaccine, the 2 vaccines coming out, will work nicely, and then there's others down the pike. But here's the thing, though, and again, the efficacy is really good. So they're testing out the worthiness of this vaccine. And here's another article on efficacy. So they're testing out the worthiness of the vaccine, that's the efficacy, with the small groups that they're studying so far. And they're finding that, number one, it decreases expression of the disease. So if you don't have fever, chills, cough, awesome. And number 2, it decreases the severe presentation of the disease. So that's how they're basing efficacy. And it was 94 to 95% efficacious. That means in the people that got the shot, the test vaccine versus placebo, the people that got the vaccine didn't have manifest any symptoms, and definitely didn't have severe symptoms. And and the ones that got placebo did manifest symptoms and severity. So hopefully I didn't lose you guys, but that's just the entry level. I'm entry level with regards to vaccines. I know about a bunch, but the details I'll have to review because it takes a little bit of understanding, and I haven't seen the data yet being released by Pfizer or Moderna. I want to make sure it's safe before I get it, but I guess that's the last thing is who will get the vaccine first. There's got to be a tiered response. It's supposed to be healthcare workers, I believe, so that we don't get sick. Now, in my case, I'm positive for COVID. I'm done for COVID. Probably not shedding virus anymore, thank God. And again, I was done with the symptoms in 4 days. But hopefully I can give my vaccine to somebody else because theoretically I've got antibodies that help me turn around the virus response and makes me stronger now. And I'm type O blood, so I can donate my antibodies to somebody else that's not doing so well in the ICU. But I think they're going to have a tiered response. First, it'll probably be healthcare workers or frontliners, police officers, ambulance drivers, people that take care of first responders and people that take care of the infrastructure, the trash collectors, the mailmen, stuff like that. So all those people will be the first, and then they'll be high risk, probably older people with medical problems. And you got to hear this because it's important to know that you can do something. The other people that have high risk are the ones with more comorbid problems. What does that mean? Comorbid problems means obesity, diabetes, early type 2, type 1, doesn't matter, diabetes of any sort, elevated blood pressure. All those things cause problems and they screw up your immune system. People that smoke. So if you have those tangible problems, or you saw me or your doctor and you're on a bunch of medicines, even if you're on medicines and you have your diseases controlled, that still makes you high risk. So reverse that crap. I mean, we had since spring to reverse disease, but I think everybody theoretically got quote unquote COVID fatigue, and that's fine. But you still have to reverse that crap because even if you get the vaccine, even if it's successful and even hopefully it doesn't cause any side effects, you still have to reverse all that other crap. Otherwise, you're on your way to a heart attack, full-blown diabetes, stroke, and cancer, because that's what those comorbid conditions lead to in the future. So this is a true testament now for making sure that the playing field is leveled. And if you thought that you could get by with prescriptions, I'm not scolding my guys who have diseases, but if you thought you can get by with taking your prescriptions and not dealing with healthy diet, exercise, mindful practice, and you're just going to kind of wing it until your diseases get worse, don't do that, because we're having proof positive that, proof in concept that you have to exercise and live a healthy life is right now, because people that are high risk are going to be not so good. Even if you have the vaccine, you can. That's not a guarantee, and it won't last forever. That's vaccines. If anything, they're going to need booster shots. But we, at this point, don't know how long it's going to last. Number one, we don't know the side effects. That's what I'm waiting for. Number two, we don't know how long the immunity will last. So we'll have to see. But you still have control, and that's why I say you got to keep your distance. You got to wear a mask. You got to wash your hands. You got to eat right. Do all that other stuff too. But for my guy that's on those biologics, hopefully we'll do okay. My guy's high risk, but he's doing what he has to do to prevent exposure. But if you can do that and reverse your comorbid conditions, we'll all do better. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea about the thinking that I'm going through with regards to my patients and the vaccines coming up and the diseases now. And the holidays are on hold for 2020. Hopefully by spring 2021, we'll see that we're going to have fun again. But I think that with all the travel now, you're going to have at least 2 more weeks of a logarithmic acceleration of presenting cases, so be careful. Otherwise, it'll go to phase 2. So if you have any questions or comments, put them down below. Otherwise, don't forget to subscribe, because you'll find out when I do new videos by hitting that alert bell. I'll see you in the next video.